radio broadcast during this pandemic season, on the cusp of many parts of America now opening back up. It's a real interesting time, a real confusing time, because the the medical professionals say that we have not um, flattened the curve yet, and we still have tested less than 3% of the population. The president is pushing hard for governors to open up houses of worship, calling them essential. Now we're essential. Um, and I saw yesterday some very disturbing videos of folks in Missouri at the Lake of the Ozarks. I mean, jam packed like sardines up in the water. No mask, no nothing. I mean, it's like there's no deadly pandemic in America. So that's happening in places across America. Very interesting times that we're living in right now, where you're seeing so many mixed messages going on about this pandemic. So, news from the campaign trail. Um, Trump is still harping on so-called Obamagate. Um, he's making his attacks on Joe Biden, and then Joe Biden, of course, did what some call a gaffe. What I say, it's a pattern of his behavior. It's nothing new. People are criticizing me, Bishop. It's just one little mistake. It wasn't that bad. It's not one little mistake. It's a pattern, and I'll talk about that. So he decided to say anybody who didn't vote for him, you ain't black. So that's the subject today. You ain't black. Who gets to determine when you aren't black enough? It certainly isn't Joe Biden. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867 is the number here to chime in on the discussion. Tell somebody that the bishop is on the air right now. What I need you to do, those who are streaming in on social media, I need for you to like, subscribe, share. YouTube, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Facebook, hit that share button, hit that like button. Periscope, double tap that screen, get them hearts pumping. We're going to go live on the gram momentarily. It's Memorial Day, day that we remember those that have fallen, and yet 46 minus 1 is tweeting out Happy Memorial Day like it's a happy occasion. Same way he tweeted out Happy Good Friday, the day that we commemorate the death of Christ on the cross. He said Happy Good Friday. And I guess I determined that maybe that's why he's so apathetic to 100,000 Americans dying of COVID-19, because he thinks dying is a happy occasion. Anyway, 413-337-1867. We'll be right back. Don't you dare touch that dial. Tell somebody the bishop is on the air. Stay with us.
Talk to me, Daddy. Talk to me, Daddy. Talk to me, Daddy. Talk to me, Daddy. A positive attitude says everything about you. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. Every day you get up, you've been given a gift. That's why they call it the present. And it's up to you of how you unwrap it. So yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, today is a gift. So don't let the pain of your past bleed into your present and poison your future. Stop replaying the movie, why did this happen to me? When it's done with you, be done with it. If it seems like you keep running into pigeons, it's an indication that you're flying too low. So set your sights a little higher. Remember, eagles fly lives themselves. If you can see the invisible, you can do the impossible. Allow your challenges to be a stepping stone to propel you into new possibilities. So be discontent with your past accomplishment. You're only as great as your last success. So maintain your hunger and your passion. Remember this, within every seed there is a tree. In every tree there is a forest. Who and what you were born into is simply the environment to prepare you for your ultimate purpose. It was not a setback, it was a setup. Your purpose and potential is bigger than your past pain or
Now the talk that he gave to you. Listen to your heart, don't let your mind fool you. Remember the talk that he gave to you. Whatever you do is gonna surely come back to you.
successful people will do the things they hate to get the things they love. Much of life is about sacrifice. You gotta give up something to get something. Success is not about what you've accomplished, but it's what you have overcome. For it's the test that you pass in life which qualifies you for the next level. You have to be willing to face your challenges and overcome them. Most people drive 12,000 miles a year moving forward, but most accidents are caused when they move backwards. You gotta stay focused on what's ahead of you instead of what's behind you. It's your daily routine that determines your success or failure. Whatever you practice at is what you become great at. What's more important than being intelligent is having the right attitude. Respect costs you nothing, but it will cost you everything not to have it. So don't be too smart for your own good. Remember, a hard head makes a soft behind. What's more important than your five senses is common sense. The heart of a fool is in his mouth, but the heart of a wise man is in his character. So don't sweat the small things. The answer for a short temper is a long walk. Be slow to speak, quick to listen, and remember this: you haven't lived long enough to know everything. Your character is what matters most. Once you have been labeled with a bad reputation, it's hard for people to see you any other way. A good name is worth more than all the money in the world. Your life is broken up into three parts. First you learn, then you earn, and then you return. You gotta give back.
Talk to me, Daddy. Talk to me, Daddy.
All right, 90.7 WTCC. Welcome to everybody in the Pioneer Valley and beyond who's listening via WTCCFM.org or who's listening over the air. Good to have you back with us again on this Memorial Day Man Cave remote edition of the Spoken Word radio broadcast. So listen, Joe Biden, and let me say this just for the record, because some of you are completely unreasonable in your political analysis, who think that to criticize Joe Biden means that you're pro-Trump. And I mean, the asininity of that is mind-boggling. I've had people accusing me all weekend long of being pro-Trump, and there's no way on earth you could have been following me for 10 minutes, let alone over the last 3.5 years that Trump has been in office, and rationally conclude that I'm pro-Trump. There's no way any sane, rational person, regardless of my critique of Biden, could come to the conclusion that I'm pro-Trump. It's gaslighting at its worst. And my problem, black people, is this notion, and liberal white folks who want to tell black people who they should vote for, is this notion that Democratic candidates are sacred cows who are above reproach or above criticism, that their records cannot be scrutinized, that they can't be critiqued, otherwise you're for the other guy. So let me say unequivocally, criticism of Joe Biden does not equal endorsement of Donald Trump. You can be critical of a candidate that you're going to vote for. You can be critical of a candidate that you support if their positions, if their rhetoric, if their behavior, if their actions go contrary to your convictions and your beliefs. Bottom line. And for these folk out here who think that we should sugarcoat who Joe Biden is, you're not being realistic. I mean, let's be real. Let's keep it 100, as the young folks say. Yes, he was Barack Obama's vice president, but he was also the architect of the crime bill. Okay? He also was the guy who catalyzed mass incarceration in these yet to be United States of America. And after the crime bill was enacted and the incarceration rate doubled within 10 years, and the states were incentivized with billions of dollars to build bigger prisons, to give longer sentences, to do three strikes laws, and black folks were going to jail for minor things. There's a gentleman right now in Michigan, Michael Thompson, who's been in prison 25 years. He's 68 years old right now. Went to jail when he was 43 for selling weed to an undercover cop. He got 60 years under laws that were promulgated as a result of the incentivization of the prison industrial complex by the crime bill. So this guy has already served 25 of a 60-year sentence. Just think about this for a moment. His mother died while he was in prison. His father died while he was in prison. His brother died while he was in prison. He's turned into a senior citizen while in prison, all over selling weed, 3 pounds of weed. Now get this, in a state where weed is now legal. Yes, he's serving time in Michigan, where there's a dispensary everywhere you turn around and look. And many of the white folks who were in law enforcement, who retired from their careers in law enforcement after putting black folks away for selling weed, are now in the weed dispensary business and making money off weed. Think about that for a minute. While Michael Thompson is still in prison with 35 more years to go. Come on, y'all. This is the legacy of the crime bill. Now, I say all that to say this. And I know folks give me the same arguments over and over again when I talk about that. Well, Bishop, many of the Congressional Black Caucus pushed for the crime bill. They supported it, and they were wrong. And Bobby Rush and so many others who were part of the CBC then, who voted for the crime bill, have admitted that they were wrong. Bobby Rush said it's the one thing he regrets the most about his career in Congress. So they have come to grips with the devastating effects it's had on 2.5 generations of black people. They've apologized for it. They've admitted that it was bad legislation, that it was wrong. Not only have they admitted that, Bill Clinton, the president who signed it into law, has apologized for it, has admitted that it was bad legislation. Okay? Bernie Sanders, who was running for president, who voted for the crime bill, admitted it was a wrong vote. Okay, not Joe Biden. Not Joe Biden. Joe Biden still defends the crime bill, still talks about the good things in the crime bill, still has the audacity to say that the crime bill did not cause mass incarceration because there's only a small percentage of people who are incarcerated in federal prison. That's so disingenuous. That's gaslighting at its worst because the truth in sentencing portion of the crime bill, once again, incentivize states, all right, to keep people in prison longer, to give longer sentences, and to build prisons. They broke their necks to build prisons and to pass laws so they can get the money that was promised to them by the crime bill. So people who are languishing in state prisons are still there as a result of the crime bill. Let's just keep it real and not play games about it. And what they're banking on is you not having the history, not reading, not knowing what happened, so that you will just, oh, yeah, well, most people are in state prison, so it's not Joe Biden's fault. It's not the crime bill's fault. Yes, it is. And see, if he was talking about, it was bad legislation, I regret it, here's what we're going to do to reverse its effects, that would be one thing. But to beat his chest and still defend it, that's problematic. And I don't care about but Trump, but Trump, but Trump. I'm not going to sugarcoat Joe Biden just because of Trump. Once again, I said you can vote for Biden, but you can also be honest about who he is. And here's the thing. Many people keep saying to me, well, Bishop, let's just get him in office first and then hold him accountable. That's backwards. That's putting the cart before the horse. You don't get somebody in office, and once they're in office, safely tucked away and no longer need your vote, then you say, hey, now let's talk about what you're going to do for black people. No, that's a negotiation that you have before you give them your votes. See, black folk, we got to stop giving our votes away for so cheap. I mean, the Democrats have to do more for us than we're not Trump. If the only thing you got is we ain't Trump and we settle for that, we're settling for less. We're settling our votes for cheap. We're spitting on the graves of Medgar Evers, of Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, of the many people who died fighting for our rights to vote, who sacrificed themselves pushing for the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. They didn't do that so we can just give our votes away for cheap and get nothing in return. If they gave their lives for something in return to benefit us, how dare we then take what they gave us and give it away for free? No, you don't negotiate after you get them in office and there's nothing you can do and you have no bargaining power, you have no leverage. No, you sit down at the table and you bargain for what you want before you give them your votes. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying we don't need to get rid of Trump. What I'm saying is we don't need to just give it to the Democrats just because Trump. And then once again, just wait, just get him in office and then wait. We're always in a waiting pattern. Why do black folk always have to wait? That's what Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail was all about. It was about white, moderate preachers telling him, you just need to wait for change to come. It'll come after a while. The late James Baldwin said, how long do we have to wait for your progress? He said, at the time he gave that interview, he said, I'm almost 60 years old. You've taken all my time. You've taken all my uncle's time, my aunt's time. You've taken my mother and my father's time. You've taken my nieces and my nephews' time. How much more time do you need for your so-called progress? So how long do black folks have to wait for an agenda specifically for us? And I'm not talking about, a rising tide lifts all boats, that this is going to benefit blacks too. while it benefits LGBT and hunchbacks and whites and women and Latinos and this one and that one and the other. Everybody else gets an agenda specifically for them. This is how we're going to benefit the LGBT community. This is how we're going to benefit women. This is how we're going to benefit veterans. This is how we're going to benefit this group and that group and the other group. But blacks always get, oh, that's going to benefit you too. But we never get anything specifically for black people. And we've got to stop just giving our vote away without an agenda that's going to benefit us. That's what I'm saying. That's not pro-Trump. That's pro-black. Okay? That's what everybody else does. Why are we the only ones who say, you know, Reverend, just wait until after we get rid of Trump? I mean, come on, man. We can do both and. We can walk and chew gum. We're brilliant people. We're smart people. We don't have to settle for what's beneath our privilege. Joe Biden owes us more than I'm not Trump. Okay? Black women all across the South and in other places saved his campaign, which was on life support. Okay? It was on life support. South Carolina, everywhere else, they came out in droves and pushed Joe Biden's campaign to the top of the ticket until he is now the presumptive Democrat nominee. That was black women that did that. Then Joe Biden rewarded them by saying, I'm not making a commitment to choose a black woman as my vice president. I'm going to choose a woman, but it ain't got to be a black woman. And then when some of us criticized that, when people like me and others said, hold up, so black women save your campaign and you can't commit to pick a black woman for VP. And then black folk jumped on us and said, I don't care who he picks for VP, long as we get rid of Trump. Do y'all want anything? Do you think you deserve anything? I mean, come on. I don't care if black, white, brown, and purple. Then, of course, white liberals came back and they said, well, it shouldn't have to be a black woman. It should be the best qualified. Well, if you're talking about the best qualified, first of all, best qualified don't have to be a woman. But you don't have no problem with him committing to picking a woman. And then, of course, the argument we always get when we say a black person deserves to be in this position is we want the best candidate, the best qualified. How come a black person can't be the best qualified or the best candidate? Arsenio Hall used to say things that make you go, How come you're always insinuating that the best qualified can't be a black person? And so now he's vetting people like Amy Klobuchar and others. And yes, he's vetting some black women as well. But to say, to make sure that you say, I mean, he was setting y'all up for it. To say, I'm not committing to selecting a black woman, let you know that just kind of prepared you for it, that when he chooses Karen or Becky, that y'all won't trip. Because he can say, I told y'all, but Shaquila wasn't going to be on the ticket. I told y'all I'd probably pick Karen instead. He's just preparing y'all for what's coming. Yes, get rid of Trump. Yes, get rid of Trump. If you know me, if you follow me, you know I'm anti-Trump. I'm about as anti-Trump as they come. But I'm not for sugarcoating the record of Democrats either. So, you know, I even had a preacher friend of mine say, well, Bishop, you're going too far. His comments weren't that bad when he said, you ain't black on the Breakfast Club. And I said to him, I'm not just talking about those comments. There's a whole pattern of stuff. This is just the latest. Some of y'all will remember him once calling Barack Obama articulate, bright, and clean. You know, how white folks used to say, um, you're a credit to your race. He's well spoken, as if the rest of black folk can't speak well, as if the rest of black folks are a demerit to their race. These glowing terms like it's an anomaly. So he referred to Barack like, wow, he's articulate, he's bright, he's clean. Like most of y'all niggas is dirty. I mean, think about it. This is Joe Biden. It's the Breakfast Club interview. That ain't the first time he put his foot in his mouth when talking about black people. Y'all remember he bragged about working with segregationist senators, and said he'd do it again. You remember this is on the campaign trail now. We're not talking ancient history. This is on the current campaign trail. He said that poor black children are just as smart as white kids, as if all black children are poor, and as if white children are the gold standard of intelligence. Joe Biden's always putting his foot in his mouth. He wrote that crime bill. He defends it to this day. And now he's drawn fire. And yes, he's apologized and stop. Don't even start tweeting it to me. Don't even start typing it in the comments because, he apologized, she apologized is always, the buffer so that white folks don't have to be accountable for what they did or said. That if they apologize quick enough, that black folks are supposed to forget about it. It didn't happen. If you stab me in the back and apologize, I still got the wound. I still have detrimental effects to my health. I still have to go into surgery. I still have to go into rehabilitation. I'm still going to have a scar. I'm still going to be psychologically damaged from that for the rest of my life. So your sorry does not stop what I have to suffer as a result of your actions. So y'all stop acting like their little sorries after they do racist stuff is supposed to be, a salve that heals the situation, and that we're supposed to get amnesia and forget about what they did. So he gets on there on Friday, and he says to Charlemagne the God that if you got a hard time figuring out whether you're going to vote for me or for Donald Trump, you ain't black. You ain't black. Now, understand this. For all of you who are defending this, for all of you who are saying it's true, that's not even the point. That's not even the point. Even if I agreed with that, the point is Joe Biden should not feel comfortable enough with black people to think that he has the right to speak for us. The guy whose legislative legacy has resulted in the complete devastation of the lives of black individuals, black families, and black communities does not have the right to speak on behalf of black people. I was reading an interview on CNN by Ravi Perry. He's the chair of the political science department at Howard University. He's a colleague and a friend of mine. We worked together here in Massachusetts before he moved out of the state. He was the former president of the Worcester branch of the NAACP. And, Ravi was saying that the context of Biden's comments um, were against the backdrop of it being stupid for African Americans to support Donald Trump after what he has done, even if you are a Republican. I agree with that. What I don't agree with is thinking that Biden has the right to say it. All right? Because a white person cannot instruct black people on their racial identity. They don't get to tell us if we're black enough. They can't pontificate about what it means to be black. They don't get to call us sellouts and Uncle Toms. They don't get to do that. And the fact that he served as vice president to the first black president, he takes liberties that he doesn't have. He addresses black folks in a way that he should not be addressing black folks. Now, I'm gonna open up the lines. I'd love to hear your comments on it in terms of what you think about it, because a lot of you were in my comment section. When I posted a tweet on my Facebook account where I said criticism of Joe Biden is not an endorsement of Trump. And many of y'all are all up in there, trying to take me to task about it. Oh, it wasn't a big deal, so on and so on and so forth. And so I want to open up the lines and see what you got to say about it. Who has the right to tell us if we're black enough? I mean, do white folks who are down with us get to do what we do? And here was the context, what my preacher friend was referring to. I posted a video. Some of y'all will remember the movie Malibu's Most Wanted. And there's a scene in there where B-Rad from Malibu is in a rap battle. And as this white guy who, is down with the brown, as they say in the movie, is rapping, he uses the N-word. When he uses the N-word, the DJ stops the record. Everybody gasps and pause and looks at him. And he stands there for a moment. And he says, "I'm sorry." And then they throw him out of the party. It's kind of like, does your white friend, because you say that's a cool white guy, that's a cool white girl, she down with us and stuff, they got the right to use the N-word around you? Do they have the right to say what you say and do what you do? Do they have the right to talk about black people the way that you talk about black people? I mean, think about it. There's certain things that are reserved for the family. I'm a Swan. I can talk about other swans. Y'all can't talk about them in my face. You ain't part of the fam. And I don't care if it's true or not. I remember years ago, I came on board to Northern Educational Services as Assistant Executive Director. And I was having a meeting with one of my program directors who was under my charge. And he was talking about my brother. And I don't know why it didn't register to him that his last name was Swan. Mine is Swan. We're probably related. But for whatever reason, it didn't register. And he's going on and on and on. And I'm sitting there like that. And then finally he catches the look on my face. And I think something clicked. And he says, Are y'all related? I said, yeah, that's my brother. And if you ever talk about my brother like that in my presence again, you won't have a job. There's certain things that only family can do. Okay? Even if you get invited to the cookout, If you're sitting there, I mean, some of y'all gonna be crazy enough to be cooking out all up in one another's face um, today, um, like there ain't no coronavirus out there. But in any case, even if you get invited to the cookout, you can't talk about Aunt Marion's potato salad like we can. You can't do that because you ain't family. Certain things only the fam can do. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Joe Biden might have been at the cookout because of his relationship with Barack. He got an invitation to the cookout. But you can't talk about grandmama's macaroni and cheese, Joe. No. No, 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 no. Mm-mm. You don't get to say who is and who isn't black enough. You just don't get to do that. 413-337-1867. Let me get that number up on the stream so y'all can remember it. I know some of you who are long-term listeners on WTCC are used to the other number, but maybe you might be getting used to this one by now after all of these weeks of remote broadcasting. Let me get that up there. There we go. 413-337-1867. Who has the right to determine who is and who isn't black enough? All right. What did Biden say? It was an 18-minute interview with Charlemagne the God on the Breakfast Club. And at the end of the interview, Charlemagne told Biden that he had more questions. And that's a big problem for me as well. Let me take this call, and I'm gonna tell you why it was a big problem for me how Biden did it. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Bishop Swan. Thank you for doing an excellent job. Just to let you know, I unfortunately, back those days, I actually went to St. Louis when they put together that crime bill, and it was quite a complicated piece of legislation. I think there were like probably 1,000 people working on that piece of legislation, also to look at economic development issues. And what was supposed to happen was the people that was incarcerated were supposed to get training, and if they were fairly minor crimes, were supposed to be out in a fairly brief time. Each state had the right to legislate how severely they were going to deal with it. So if someone had 3 pounds of weed, they could have put them in for 6 years and work with the person and get them through college and find out what kind of skill level they had and work with them and put them in a job. If they didn't do that, then that more or less the state made those critical mistake. But if you read the legislation, it's quite complicated. I would argue that if you look at it, it allows a lot of adaptation. That's why we've been able to vote off the book and have marijuana to make legal, because that's part of the crime bill. We figured that it was easier to legalize drugs and try to figure out a way to let people purchase it at their own, as long as they understand as long as they knew that somehow the taxes that they paid would go toward helping them with treatment, and they would have to, and it would be a part, if you notice, every insurance company, if a person is an addict, they have to pay for their inpatient treatment.
Let me ask you this question since you're on that. What are your thoughts then on the fact that there are black people languishing in prison over marijuana, which is now legal in many states, and there are people languishing in prison in states where marijuana is legal, and where retired law enforcement officials who locked people up for marijuana are now making money off of marijuana, and no one is pushing for legislation to release those persons from prison for selling or using a product that is now legal?
Well, well, Bishop Swan, what I tell you this is the people who have those laws in place need to go back and look at the complete bill, and it says that all they need to do, if they choose to do so, the governor can at that present governor, whoever's in governor, can can go and give all those people amnesty, and they can be released almost immediately.
Yeah,
So
but
the
see
crime bill
the
allows
problem with
for
that.
that as it stands,
But see the
and then the
problem.
legislator in each of those states or territory can later ratify it by putting legislation through.
But see
But
the problem with that. The problem with that is every state has a process by which folks have to apply to the governor to commute a sentence or to pardon or give amnesty or whatever the case may be. It's a long, arduous process. There's a serious backlog in most states, and most
but that's what I'm
governors,
telling
and
you.
most governors, and most governors do not spend that amount of time going through that backlog and releasing everybody who that would be a mammoth task to release everybody. But a piece of legislation could do it immediately as opposed to waiting for a governor to commute a sentence.
That's the whole thing. The governor does not have to commute the Senate. All the governor needs to do is issue an executive order. It allows for it because it considered if once they start legalizing it considered it to be an emergency situation that the person that was incarcerated was previously unjustly incarcerated. Therefore, the state is not liable for the crime. For doing the state did what it could do, but now since it's been ratified and changed by the citizens of that state, the governor now can make a quick decision and says anybody who's in any prison on state charges for those charges can immediately release those people. Then the legislative body has to then bring it up to the legislation. Massachusetts did those things, and those corrections were made in Massachusetts. However, I don't know what went on those other states.
But very few states are doing that. Very few states are doing that, and that's what I see as problematic. The other problematic thing I see is, and I don't say problematic in terms of whether I think it's a good idea or not, because I think declaring addiction a public health issue is right. Okay, I think going the route of providing assistance to addicts instead of criminalizing them is the right approach. But I can't help but notice that that was not the approach when black folks were hooked on heroin, when black folks were hooked on crack. It was about personal responsibility. It was about a personal choice, and they criminalized the addict. That's what the crime bill. That's what the crime bill and other legislation was all about. But now that opioids and heroin and prescription pills are the problem, and the face of the addicts are white folks from the suburbs, we have this kinder, gentler approach to drug addiction, and we had literally law enforcement departments, regardless of what the law says, who refused to arrest. Who refused, and they would take them to detox instead of taking them to jail. And so we have this soft approach when the addict is a white person, and yet we still got black folks languishing in prison for their addiction.
Well, like I said, those are very all the legislations there. I know when it came time for Massachusetts to vote, I voted for it, and I was a police officer, and I encourage everybody else I knew to vote for it. And there were people saying they were going to vote for it because I said at least the person they'll get registered. The only thing they'll get at this point for smoking in public is a simple citation rather than get locked up. So we made some quick changes in Massachusetts. You still get a citation if you have less. If you have less than if you smoke with less than an ounce. If you have over an ounce, then that gets to be a little funny. But at least if it's less than an ounce, and when you and your two friends in your backyard smoking one joint, you don't get charged with distribution and get a felony charge for three friends smoking a joint. And that used to happen to people. So those are all ludicrous kind of laws that were enacted, not because of the people when they were in St. Louis and with making the decision was alleged by a resident, as well as people who were mindful and trying to put together recovery programs here locally. I was on the SCAPA board here. I was the chairman of the board. I worked with Frank Robinson, who put together community partnership, which I assisted him in writing that grant, and also Prevention One. So we've tried to do things right here in Springfield, and Frank has been very good at make sure and keeping very good statistical data on what improvements been made. So I think we need to look at Springfield, talk to Frank, and see what things he have done or some changes they might have made to make things work better here locally in Springfield and statewide.
All right. I appreciate your call.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
413-337-1867. 413-337-1867. Now, here's the thing. I was talking about that interview, and here is my overarching problem. It's not just the you ain't black thing with Biden. It's not just the hold one moment, caller. Let me get this thought out. I'll get right to you. It's not just the you ain't black. It's the fact that when Charlemagne said, "I've got more questions," Biden interrupted and said, "I tell you what, if you got a problem figuring out if you're for me or Trump, you ain't black." So basically, he was saying to him, "I don't need to answer your questions, Negro. If you don't vote for me, you just ain't black. I don't care what your questions are. Just vote for me." It's kind of like Laura Ingraham telling LeBron James to shut up and dribble. They're basically telling black people, shut up and vote Democrat. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
It's like a delay, sir.
You're on the air, caller.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Bishop.
How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good.
My thing is that I agree with what you're saying. He probably shouldn't be the one saying that. But I don't know if you watch Roland Martin, this guy, Paris Denard, working for the Trump campaign.
Yeah, I know Paris.
Was just talking all kind of nonsense.
I know Paris. Paris is a white supremacy apologist.
Yes, sir, he is. Mm-hmm. He's horrible. But I agree with what Biden said. He just shouldn't have been the one to say it. And when you compare what this fool, Paris Denard, was saying, it's just like almost, my God, what are you talking about? Are you serious with this? So I was wondering, how do you reconcile with guys like him compared to what Biden said? Which I agree with you. So
that goes back to my analogy about you being invited to my house for the cookout, and me and my kids might be talking about my wife's potato salad. I don't even eat potato salad, but hey, we can talk about Ma's potato salad. You can't, because you ain't family. And even if it's true, even if the potato salad is horrible, even if there's raisins in the potato salad, we can talk about it. You can't. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And so that's what I feel. So we can criticize Paris Denard. We can call Paris a Tom if we want. We can call him a sycophant. We can call him a white supremacy apologist. Because we family. We in the black family. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Joe Biden don't get to do that. You're a guest at the cookout, Joe. You just sit down and listen to the conversation. That's the part where you get out of the commentary. When we start talking about, whether the Steelers are better than the Cowboys, again, you can get back in the conversation. But when we talking about whether or not Paris is an Uncle Tom, that's where you butt out.
Yes, sir. He was way too comfortable. And he talks way too comfortable. And he just, I don't know, he just sticks his foot in his mouth a lot. And
A lot.
I mean, I'm gonna vote. I'm gonna vote for him because that devil in the White House, he got to go.
Well, see, that's my
But
thing.
Joe got to come
I can
back.
respect you voting for him, but still being honest about who he is and saying, listen,
Yes.
we don't have a good choice. You know, the Democrats did not give us a good choice, but we need
No,
to get
sir.
Trump. But we need to get Trump out. But I'm gonna be honest about who Joe is, and we're gonna negotiate with Joe for this is what black people want when you get in the White House.
Yes.
And you don't do that negotiation after he gets in there. You put the pressure on him and do that negotiation before you give him your vote.
Yes, sir. You gotta drag his feet across some coals. You have to.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. God
Appreciate
bless you,
your call.
man. Have a great day.
You too. 413-337-1867. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, how you doing, Bishop?
I'm good.
I've been listening to you for a while, and I enjoy everything that you always said and what you bring to the table. I just had a few questions.
All right.
Just like one question.
All right.
With the Biden thing, what I can see from it is like a lack of understanding for our people.
Okay.
And that just, is an example of like a disconnect, which most of all the politicians, whether on the right side or the left side, don't seem to connect with our people in as a whole. So my question to you is, when you speak of the Black agenda, what should we be asking for? Like, I don't think our vote should be given to them as well. But I think that, when you got a whole bunch of young voters and everybody coming in, I don't know if they know what to ask for.
Right. Well, that's when we come together and we craft an agenda and then we speak that to them. See, my problem is we've got too many of our Congressional Black Caucus members who are just, lockstep, whoever the Democrat nominee is, and they're not demanding more out of the nominee. Too many of our civil rights organizations, including the one that I'm a part of, the NAACP, not doing enough to push a Black agenda. The fact that the whole conversation of reparations is gone is problematic. Now that we're down to two candidates, and early in the Democratic campaign, the subject of reparations was a big talking point in the campaign. Now it's not, because Joe Biden is against reparations. Okay, we need to put his feet to the fire on reparations. Joe Biden is defending the crime bill. We need to put his feet to the fire about that. What are you going to do to reverse the harmful effects of 25 years of mass incarceration that you are the father of? I mean, there's a whole host of issues that we ought to be talking to him about and demanding legislative action, executive orders. We ought to be demanding money being put towards certain initiatives that benefit Black people. All of that should be happening, as opposed to our only conversation being, we got to get rid of Trump. We got to get rid of Trump. 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 We cannot be so singular-minded that the only thing we're concerned about is getting rid of Trump and selling our votes off for that purpose and getting absolutely nothing in return from the Democrats, as we have over and over again. And here's the thing. We got to remember, Democrats gave us mass incarceration. That was Joe Biden and Bill Clinton. Democrats gave us welfare reform, making sure that you stigmatized Black people, even though, first of all, welfare was only less than 1% of the entire federal budget, and 80% of people on welfare were white women. But we allowed them to put the face of welfare as Black people and stigmatize us. Okay, that was Bill Clinton's administration. That was Democrats. And so when we're honest about who people are, we have to admit, no, we don't like the policies of Republicans. We don't like the policies of conservatives. Yes, there are open racists on the right, but at the same time, some of the most damaging policies that came into effect that have devastated black people were promulgated, pushed, passed, and implemented by Democrats. That's just real.
Well, this is my question, because you brought up a good thing. So I felt when they had those debates and we didn't have any representation out there when they had those debates at the end, when they got rid of Kamala Harris and Booker was left, and there was a whole bunch of white people talking about our agenda, that felt real uncomfortable. But my question to you, because you brought up the NAACP, and I'm not calling them out or anything like that. Biden has people underneath him, correct? Meaning the Bookers, the Harris, and all these other individuals that's supposed to be representation to us. How do we hold their feet to the fire to make sure that our agenda is going to him? Because obviously, it seems like we're talking to him. I think they need to be talking for us. I think that I don't think they're listening.
I think that has to happen at the grassroots level. I think it has to happen at the level of, listen, if you want our votes, here's what we want from you. Every one of us influence people. And they say that the influence is at least 7 people. That means my vote is not just my vote. It's my vote plus the votes of at least 7 other people. We have to use our voting power to negotiate, because unfortunately, many of those politicians are concerned about what their place in the next administration is going to be. Am I going to get to be the attorney general, the vice president, the head of this department or that department? And when you think about it, Kamala Harris and Cory Booker didn't speak for us when they were running for president. Okay. Kamala Harris said very specifically, I'm not going to do anything specific for black people. No, that's a famous quote of hers from the campaign, that she's not going to go out there and do anything just specific for black people. So if she wouldn't do it when she was running for president, why would she be the person to hold Joe Biden's feet to the fire on behalf of the black people that she said she wasn't going to do nothing for?
Well, I'm just saying we have the numbers. So who do we hold accountable to get our word across?
Us. Because us. When we get to town halls, when we speak to our legislative and our congressional leaders, we let them know, listen, here's the deal. Joe only gets our vote if we get A, B, C, and D. We have to do that from the grassroots level. There has to be a groundswell at the grassroots level to get Joe's attention, as opposed to trying to use black folks who are already in elected office, who are more concerned about upward mobility in their career than they are speaking for black people, to do it for us.
Okay. Well, I ain't got no more questions.
I appreciate your call. Thank you for your questions, brother.
All right, have a good one.
You too. 413-337-1867. I missed my cue in terms of WTCC, and I'm already off the air on that side. You're still on. Okay, I'm still on momentarily. You're still on. So go ahead and wrap it up. So we're gonna wrap up, and we're gonna get off on WTCC. And then we'll transition into the overdrive. And y'all know what the overdrive is. That's when we go into overdrive here on social media. And so, as usual, I always appreciate all of the listeners on WTCC FM. We'll be back with you on next Monday, same time, same bat station. And until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I. The rest of y'all hold tight. We'll be right back.
Eric Garner, say his name. Eric Garner, say his name. Eric Garner, say his name. Eric Garner, won't you say his name? Trayvon Martin, say his name.
All right.
Say his name. Trayvon Martin.
Back at you. Overdrive edition of the spoken word.
Say his name. Sean Bell.
413-337-1867. And for those of you who are just tuning in or coming on, we've been talking about who's got the right to say who is and who ain't black enough. We've been talking about the latest so-called gaffe by Joe Biden. We've been talking about the election and various other things that have happened over this weekend. 413-337-1867 is the number here. When Biden made that comment, of course, the critics pounced, and they should have. They should have. Now, of course, Tim Scott, the lone black Republican in the Senate, came out criticizing Biden, saying that 1.3 million black Americans voted for Trump, and he didn't have a right to tell them that they were not black. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Good morning, caller. Going once, going twice, you're gone. And then he said that he thought it was par for the course for Democrats to take the black community for granted. And I'm not a fan. And then you had crazy folks like Hawk Newsom who had the nerve to say that. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into that. The bottom line is, there's no room for white people to define what is and what ain't black. Bottom line. I mean, his tone was condescending. It was insensitive. All of that plays into it. That's context, y'all. Now, whether you're black and you agree, oh yeah, if you vote for Trump, you ain't black. Even if you agree with that sentiment, you have to look at the arrogance, the tone, the condescending nature of Joe Biden saying it, to whom he said it, and the way he said it, while refusing to answer questions about a black agenda. Put all of that in there with it. Put all of that context in there with it. And yes, he was taking the black vote for granted. That, just look, Negroes ought to automatically be voting for me. That's basically what he was saying. And unfortunately, that's not just his mindset. That's the mindset of the entire Democrat Party. That there's nothing specifically we need to do for you. There's no specific advocacy we need to do on your behalf. We're not the Republicans. We're not that kind of racist. We're not Trump. So you ought to be voting for us. And how often does that happen? How often does that happen? All the time. All the time. There was a particular race happening here in Massachusetts some years ago. At the time, it was the most expensive Senate race in history and in the United States. We went to the Democrats and said, "Can you spend 1%? 1% of what you're spending on pain in the black community?" They refused. We asked the Republicans. Republicans said, "Sure, we'll spend some money in the black community." And the reason the Democrats refused is because they figured we got the black vote on lock here in Massachusetts. We don't need to spend no money in your community. We don't need to advertise with your radio stations. We don't need to put ads in your black newspapers. We don't need to spend money on y'all. Y'all gonna vote for us no matter what we do. That's the kind of arrogance with which Democrats continue to deal with black people. And that has to stop. And our votes can't be that cheap anymore. Can't be that cheap. And so that's why I'm not one of them. I want Trump out. But that's why there are many black people who take the position, I don't care about another 4 more years of Trump. If Democrats are going to disrespect us like that, I won't vote. And 4 more years of Trump is their punishment for not respecting black people. Y'all got to look at it both ways now. You can look at it as Trump, 4 more years of Trump is punishment to black people for not voting. But there are black folks who are looking at it as 4 more years of Trump is punishment to Democrats for taking black people for granted. There's two sides to every coin, you know. And we deserve more than I ain't Trump. I'm not Republican. We're not racist like them. We deserve a little bit more than that, y'all. For real, for real. You know, and when are we going to get it is the question. When are we going to get it? You know, how much longer do we have to continue to wait for it? We've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. How much longer? We're going to keep waiting for you to seriously address our issues. How much longer? You know, they used to say they couldn't afford reparations. Not only that they didn't want to pay them, but America couldn't afford them. Sandy Darity once calculated out reparations that were equivalent to 40 acres and a mule to be about $2.2 trillion to all of the descendants of enslaved Africans. America said, we can't afford that tab. Coronavirus came along and white folks couldn't go to work, and they pulled $2 trillion from under the mattress and sent out stimulus checks. So America always had the money to do reparations. They just weren't giving it to black people. Plain and simple. When we going to talk about that, Democrats? We're going to deal with that. Now, instead of debating the crime bill, when we going to do something to reverse its harmful effects? When are we going to do something for nonviolent drug offenders whose lives were ruined because of mass incarceration? While white folks like Rush Limbaugh caught with illegal prescription pain medication, young white folks caught with heroin and opioids who get nothing on their record, but they get treatment and help. But black folks went to jail. When we gonna help them out because they can't get a job or find an apartment or something like that? Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, that's just one. Actually, back to the days when Joe Biden was, Joe Biden had never been a good guy. I mean, Joe Biden has always been a tough guy.
I can barely hear you.
Yeah, I was speaking to Joe Biden, and right. Joe Biden has always been rough. somebody and Joe Biden never, he has never been friends with the white man. I mean, just to get Trump out of office just by him, that is good. I mean, that's good. I mean, it's good in the way of the Lord, because the Lord says you make those things straight. Let's just put one more, let's just put one more sign up there for people to read. Yeah, him, like you know, Trump. I mean, hey, they don't ever take their turn. That's what it's about. Hey, okay.
All right. Well, I appreciate your call. I'm not sure everything that you were saying because you were very low, but hope you got everything you wanted to say out. 413-337-1867 is the number here. Yeah, so when we going to talk about those things that we ought to be talking about instead of just wait, Bishop, just wait. Let's get them in office. Wait. Talk about it once we get them in office. I never heard of that strategy before. That you negotiate for what you want after you've given your votes and put them in power. I'm confused about that logic. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning. I just wanted to ask, all these issues that you've raised, how come when Bernie Sanders was going around campaigning, Black people didn't get behind him? All those issues you raised about mass incarceration, about reparations, about taking the Black vote for granted, healthcare, where were the Black people then to support him?
What do you mean, where were the Black people?
Where were the Black people in the primaries to vote for him against someone like Biden, who eventually won?
Well, how did Bernie resonate with Black people?
Well, I think he resonated pretty well. He resonated for someone like me, who I like to say is the Republicans' worst nightmare, an immigrant, Black and female.
Well, I guess if he had resonated very well with Black people, they would have voted for him. Now, see, part of the issue with Bernie's platform, Bernie talked about mass incarceration. He talked about racism. He talked about various subjects. But when you got down, really drilled down to the nitty gritty of Bernie's philosophy, Bernie had a philosophy that the problems with racial disparity in America is not necessarily a result of white supremacy. It's a result of economics. And so his position had always been, if you bring blacks and whites into parity economically, then the race problem goes away. And I think that was completely skewed and off base because we don't catch hell because of our economics. We catch hell because we're Black. When the police kill Black folk, they don't ask them how much money they make first. You know, when we're discriminated against or brutalized, they don't check our social status first before they do that. Bernie also was dismissive about reparations. He was totally against reparations. And then Bernie also had a rising tide lifts all boats philosophy, where he wasn't going to do anything specifically for the African American community. Whenever he was asked about that, his position was, we're going to do this with healthcare, we're going to do this with that, and it's going to benefit Black people along with a whole bunch of other folks as well. But when it came down to, no, what specifically are you going to do to benefit Black people, Bernie didn't have an answer or a plan for that.
Yeah, well, perhaps he didn't have the specifics, but I think overall, in terms of issues like education, a certain demographic, and don't get me wrong, again, I'm part of that demographic. A certain demographic finds itself in these situations which come up against the establishment, whether it's the law or whatever, because from a very young age, they just are disadvantaged. And Bernie was addressing the disadvantages. I mean, I agree there is racism, but I also agree that if you can help out from the time the little kid is born up until later on, you already have an advantage over other people who are not given the same tools to capitalize on what's available in American life.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
I mean, Bernie had some baggage. It wasn't the kind of baggage that Joe Biden has. But he just couldn't get there in terms of resonating with black voters for some reason.
No, I think he couldn't get there because the establishment took away any opportunities that he had to be promoted.
Oh, I don't believe that.
If you didn't take the time to investigate about Bernie, there was nothing in mainstream media that would give you information about him. If you're watching TV, if you're reading the newspaper,
I have a hard time with chalking up a millionaire white guy from Vermont who's had every advantage that you can have in life, with the establishment taking something away from him. I mean, the dude was the front runner for a while until South Carolina. He was ahead of the pack and was looking like the presumptive nominee and was asking other people to drop out of the race. And then when North Carolina happened, things kind of slipped out of his grip.
Well, let's put it like this. When it came down to the crunch, when he was in the South, where it actually matters that black people show up to the polls because they're so marginalized down there, their vote is really crushed, that's when things hit the fan.
But here's the thing. I hear you, because I think the Bernie camp talking about the establishment taking something from him is to me, that's the equivalent of Trump's folk talking about the deep state doing something. If there's this mysterious deep state and mysterious establishment taking stuff, at the end of the day, individuals went out and voted. And if you and most of those individuals will tell you, didn't no establishment force me to vote the way that I voted. So I guess I'm just not one who buys into that establishment waved a wand or had some kind of magic hypnotizing power over black people to cause them to vote a certain way. I think we need to give black people a little more credit than that and say they voted based upon their convictions and their conscience. Now, whether I agree with that vote or not is something different.
But I think with proper information and not just this sort of tribal consciousness, Biden was with Obama, so therefore he's our best choice.
What you gonna do about that though? That ain't establishment. That's just the natural way of things. That's how things happen.
Because again, people are too lazy to do the research to educate themselves on the issue.
But isn't that the responsibility of the campaign? Isn't it their responsibility to educate?
It's the responsibility of the individual.
Isn't it the responsibility of the listen? If you're running for office and I don't know who you are, it's not my responsibility to go and find out about this no-name person who I don't know and research her, and I don't even know she's running for office. Okay, isn't it your responsibility to get information to me, educate me about who you are, your campaign, your platform, and how it benefits me, and to solicit my vote? That's not the responsibility of the campaign.
I agree, and again, if we're talking about in terms of what people actually put out there, Biden didn't do much to let people know what he's doing at all, but still people voted for him. If we were to go with that assumption,
Well, obviously somebody knew something about him because they sure voted for him over Bernie.
Yeah, it's that idea of, I know this slave master, so I'll stay with him because I don't know that slave master over there who I might get.
Yeah, well, I agree with you there, but I mean, even Killer Mike said, and Killer Mike was a Bernie supporter, that
Mhm.
that black folk are basically arguing over whose master is better, and and he said that at one of the revolt events, and
Mhm.
and whether your master is Biden or your master is Bernie, black folk,
Mhm.
instead of arguing about a black agenda, are arguing about
Mhm.
whose master is better. I mean, I've had some people that I highly respect who've taken issue with me criticizing um, Joe Biden because Trump, and
Well,
I refuse not to criticize Joe or be silent on Joe or educate people about who Joe is just because of Trump. I'm not going to do that. Um, but you're right in that issue, in that sense, that there are a lot of folk who this is the devil I know, and that's who I'm going to go with.
Well, I'm going to get off now because I have to make another call. But thank you for all the work you do in the community. I really appreciate everything you do to get the word out there and to bring people's awareness up. And hopefully soon we'll be seeing a new day in this country, in this
Definitely.
world.
Thank you for your call, sis.
Thank you. Take
Yep.
care.
God bless.
Bye.
413-337-1867. 413-337-1867. Yeah. I mean, who arguing over who master is better? My master better than your master. It's sad, but it's true. It's true. That's how we get down. Good morning, caller.
Hey, what's up? I just had a question about Joe Biden.
All right.
You first when he said that, I laughed when he said that because I knew he was joking, and it came right off the heels of them talking about civil rights. So he was explaining his relationship with the black community, and suddenly this guy who took orders from a black man for 8 years, defended him, became friends with him, is now racist.
That ain't sudden.
I'm black.
That's not sudden. Huh? That ain't sudden. He was who he is before Obama selected him as his vice presidential candidate. See, here's the issue. What you have to understand is proximity to black folk doesn't cure racism. Okay?
No.
No. Let me just finish the point. Proximity to black folks, working with black folk, being married to black folk, having children with black folk, that does not cure racism. You can still have racist tendencies. You can still have racist proclivities. You can still be racist and still work with black folk, defend black folk, have black friends, all of that kind of stuff. And see, they were talking about civil rights, all that kind of stuff. But the problem is when Charlemagne said, "I've got more questions," basically Joe's position was, I don't need to answer more questions. If you don't take if you don't take the fact that I was Barack's VP, and my relationship with the black community and stuff, and vote for me, then you just ain't black. It's not his place to say that. It's not his place to even think that. He ain't that down with black people that we prove our blackness by voting for him.
No, that's what I said. I think he was obviously joking, but maybe he shouldn't have said that.
That's a bad joke. That's a bad joke. There's certain things that just ain't funny.
But right then he had to go. Like you had been with them for 19 minutes, and he said he would come to New York, come to their studio, and talk to them more. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like he was avoiding it.
But here's the deal. I hear what you're saying. It would be one thing if that was like the only time Joe did something like that. It's not. There's a running record. I mean, poor black kids are just as smart as white kids. Okay, as if all black kids are poor, and as if white kids are the standard for the gold standard for intelligence. I mean,
See, I don't think he meant it like that.
but these are the kind of so-called gaffes that Joe Biden makes when talking about black people all the time. And then once again, people are always coming to his defense. That's not what he meant. He was joking. He meant this. He meant that. He meant
I'm
the
not defending
other.
him. What I'm trying to say is, I think he's talking to people who grew up in the same area that he did and explaining to them, that things that they may have had grown up their whole life and thought, hey, black kids aren't as smart as white kids. And so he's talking to them and saying, hey, these kids are just as smart as white kids. I don't believe that he's telling black people this or telling the new generation that already knows this stuff. But the older people,
I hear what you're saying, and I get it. I get what you're saying, but somebody needs to be advising him on how he's going to resonate with black folks, and just this off the cuff stuff that he says, it's off putting, and it comes across as racist, whether you believe he's a racist or not. When you couple all of his many gaffes with his record, this is the guy who said that crime legislation promulgated by Republicans wasn't tough enough. This is the guy who this is the guy who opposed integrating schools. This is the guy, who promulgated the crime bill that targeted black folks for mass incarceration. When you take his record and juxtapose it against his rhetoric, then I mean, then it's easy to perceive this guy as an out of date 70-year-old bigot, who got black friends and think he's down with us.
But don't you think you have to look at that in context? I mean, Biden didn't start the mass incarceration. Nixon did. Nixon started the war on drugs. Biden simply, in 1994, when they passed the crime bill, right? I grew up in Chicago, and we had to move because there's so much crime, right? There's gangs. We couldn't even go to school, right? After that passed, not right away, but, within the years, crime did reduce. And black people wanted that bill passed.
What people keep saying that as the excuse, and I get it, and I get that the CBC supported it, so on and so forth. The CBC now says it was a mistake. Everybody who was affiliated,
in hindsight,
everybody who was affiliated with the crime bill, in hindsight, says it was a mistake. Bobby Rush said it's the single most thing that he regrets in his career in Congress. The only person affiliated with the crime bill who has not said it was a mistake and still defends it is Joe Biden.
And see, I believe that because he's talking about and I don't agree with this, but what he was saying is that some of that had to do with state crime and some of it had to do with federal crime.
But the federal bill, but read the bill. The federal bill, the truth in sentencing portion of that bill incentivized the states to build prisons, to keep people in prison longer, to give longer sentences, and the states ate it up, built prisons because the feds offered them billions of dollars to do so through the crime bill. So the boom in the state prisons was a result of the crime bill. So people can't dismiss mass incarceration and say it was a state thing when the states were catalyzed and incentivized by that crime bill.
Yeah, I believe that's part of the unintended consequences of that. But again, I just think that crime did, decrease after that. And I think that part.
And within 10 years of the crime bill, literally within 10 years, the U.S. prison population doubled.
And under Obama, it reduced 38%.
So to claim that It did not cause mass incarceration, regardless. He's kind of like Trump in that way. Regardless of what the empirical evidence says, he thinks if he just says the opposite, that makes it true. It didn't cause
No,
mass incarceration. But dude, the facts and figures are in front of you.
See, I believe it's nuanced, though. Trump lies. Trump straight up lies. I mean,
so does Biden. Biden just claimed the NAACP has always endorsed him. NAACP doesn't endorse. He claimed that he went with certain civil rights leaders to visit Nelson Mandela on Robben Island. Those civil rights leaders say we never went to Robben Island with Joe Biden. He's making stuff up. I was involved in the civil rights movement. He was not. So he lies too.
Right.
He doesn't lie as prolifically as Trump does, but he does his share of lying too.
Yeah, that might be true on some things. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but yeah, that was just my thing of what Charlemagne had, what he said to Charlemagne. I laughed, and I know other people did, but because we thought he was joking, I didn't think he meant anything by it. So I went on social media, and I was like, "What are people so upset about?" And then
it's kind of like,
understood.
listen, it's like this. If we're at a party and I tell a nigga joke, people will laugh at it.
Right.
If you tell the exact same nigga joke that I told, ain't nobody gonna be laughing at you. They ain't gonna laugh at you. They're gonna look at you like, who the hell do you think you are?
You mean like a white person?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because I'm black.
Yeah, if a white person told, I mean, you generically as a white person, like a Joe Biden, if they told the exact same joke to the exact same people, they would get a completely different response.
Doesn't it depend? Doesn't it depend on if you know the person?
Well, see that, and that, yes, see that's you're hitting the nail on the head right there. That's the problem, is that Joe thinks because I was Barack's VP, I'm part of the black family. So it's kind of like you got a friend who's white, right?
Right.
And he's down with you, so on and so forth. He uses the N-word, you my nigga or whatever. It doesn't offend you. It doesn't bother you. That's your boy. He can say that around you, okay? Some random white dude somewhere else calls you a nigga. It's a completely different story. It's kind of like what Marlon Wayne said. He said white folks need to get a nigga pass. That if you're around certain people and they're your friends and stuff and you down with them, they can give you a nigga pass. So you can say that word around them. He said, but if you say nigga around folks who ain't your niggas, nigga, it's something different. You ain't just because somebody got a nigga pass with you, that don't mean they should be comfortable enough to say nigga around me, because I ain't gave them no nigga pass. See, Joe thinks he got a nigga pass with all of Black America.
Yeah, I guess I see that from that perspective too. Yeah, but you said you don't care if Trump gets reelected, or that you can.
No, I do care if Trump gets reelected. I don't want Trump to get reelected. My position is simple. Yes, get Trump out of office, but let's not sugarcoat who Biden is or any other Democrat simply because of that. And also, let's demand more from Democrats than simply, I'm not a Republican. But what specifically? We need to. We've been talking about that all show long. We talked about reparations. We've talked about specific legislation to reverse the harmful effects of the crime bill. We've talked about various things that you ought to be giving specifically to Black people, other than I'm not Trump. And that's where I'm not comfortable. That basically what I saw Joe saying to Charlemagne You don't vote for me over Trump. You ain't black. Basically, vote for me because I ain't Trump. You know, and black people need more than I ain't Trump.
But did you look at his policies? I mean, his policy proposals.
Yes,
they directly call for basically reversing the effects of mass incarceration
and his policies also are against reparations.
You think that will ever pass? Do you think reparations would ever pass?
Listen. It's not a matter of whether it will ever pass. And see, that's not my concern. My concern, though, is if the guy who wants my vote for president, whether he supports it or not. He can't even say he can't even say that he supports the HR 40, the bill that for the study of reparations. I mean, everybody else at least said that. Everybody else that was running, Elizabeth Warren and everybody else, at least said, yeah, I support HR 40. Joe Biden don't want nothing to do with reparations.
Did somebody ask him specifically about that bill?
Yes, he's against it, and so was Bernie. The last caller who called in asking me about Bernie. Bernie was adamantly against reparations, and Bernie, his policies are always a rising tide lifts all boats. We're going to do this, and it's going to help black people too. But we're not going to do nothing specific for black people.
Well, he just needs to get more black people around him. I mean, that might, you know what I mean?
Well, Bernie had a boatload of black people around him. I'm just wondering if he ever listened to any of them. I mean, he had Nina Turner. He had his campaign manager. He had Sean King. He had Killer Mike. He had Cornel West. He had a who's who in Black America, and still was talking crazy.
Okay, but yeah, I didn't agree with those black people, but but all right then. I just wanted to call and see, what exactly you wanted from, because I always hear other black people say, we want something from them. What are they going to give us? And I'm just like, okay, well, what is it? I mean, I heard you say reparations.
But see, the other thing is, I have a problem with black people telling us, wait until we get them in office, then we can hold them accountable. That's backwards to me.
Yeah, that's true.
That's backwards. Let's just give them 30 million votes, or however many of us are actually going to go to the polls. Let's just give them X number of million of votes, and then negotiate with them once they get in power and we have no leverage.
Right. Okay. Well, I got to go, but God bless you, brother.
All right. Thank you for your call.
Bye.
All right. I got about 16 minutes left in the program. 413-337-1867. 413-337-1867 is the number here for you who want to get in on the conversation. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hi.
Hello.
This is Mel. I'm calling you from Texas.
Okay, turn your radio down, Mel.
Okay.
All right.
Hi.
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Okay. Got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
From what I'm hearing you say this morning was that, and first off, I'm not going to defend Joe Biden in any way. Yes, I'm going to vote for him. No problem. But I'm not going to defend him. But I'm hearing you say 3 or 4 things. One was that you don't want to wait. You don't want to give away black votes cheap. No way. You want to get something for your vote. You deserve something for your vote. If you're going to vote for somebody, you believe in them because they're going to help you. They're going to represent you, right?
Yep.
Okay. And you're saying you don't want to vote and then try to get things from the person after they're in office, because you won't. You know what I'm saying? You got to ask for it up front. You got to get it in the planks. You got to get it in the agenda. You got to get it in the
everybody else makes a demand before they give their votes away, and I'm just wondering why black folks feel like you got to get the Democrat in office and then negotiate.
Right, and I'm agreeing with you. So I'm saying it's 2 months until the platform's going to be written. And that's where you got it in writing. You got what they want. You know what I'm saying? And this is the time right now where people are putting in what they want. As he's going through and he's talking to the people from Warren to Kamala to whoever about administrative positions, he's listening. He's listening right now.
Okay.
So you're saying that the Black Caucus can't speak for you. And I keep asking kind of the question, okay, who is going to speak?
Well, don't we have the power as voters at the grassroots level to speak for ourselves? Don't we have the power to speak to Black Caucus members? Don't we have the power to speak to civil rights organizations and
absolutely? I'm just saying it's 2 months. It's 2 months, and right now is the time to speak to Joe, to speak to your leaders, speak to the people that will speak.
Oh, there's
Joe
no doubt about it. And see, the thing is, we should have been speaking the whole time, during the campaign, during the primaries, the whole nine, and we continue to speak up until Election Day. I just think that we ought to get more out of the deal than getting Trump out of office. That's what I'm saying. We need more out of it. Everybody else, evangelicals, got something specific out of Trump. This is what we're getting in exchange for voting for you. We're getting these conservative judges. We're getting this in terms of religious freedom. We're getting this and that specifics.
That was a 40-year plan that's been put in place to undermine democracy. So
oh, absolutely. I agree with you. I agree with you. But 81% of them voted for him, and they specifically got things in their agenda passed. All I'm saying is for Black folks, we need to demand more than let's get the other guy out of office.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what can we get in the agenda specifically? Can you get it down to any specifics?
Oh, we can look, Black women put you in this position. We want a Black woman for VP. We want another Black person on the Supreme Court. We want reversal to the harmful policies of your crime bill. We want monies put into these particular initiatives. There's all kinds of things that we can specifically ask for and say, listen, if we're going to vote for you, this is what we want. How much of this can we get? Can we negotiate? Can we talk about? Other than getting Trump out of office. Caller?
Who's got Joe's ear?
Say again?
Who's got Joe's ear that can speak?
Well, I mean, he's got folks around him. We've got legislative leaders and others that we need to be speaking to, saying, listen, who are surrogates for Joe, who we need to be saying, listen, if y'all want us to vote on the Democrat side, here's what we want. And we ought to be meeting with those individuals as we do. Listen, I meet regularly with our leaders to say here's what the constituents that I represent want.
Awesome.
I had Joe Kennedy at my church. I had Elizabeth Warren. I had various other people there. We speak all the time as a national Black clergy alliance to the Congressional Black Caucus and other leaders. So we've got to continue to have those conversations and move the needle toward giving Black people some specifics other than just this general thing that, our policies are going to help y'all.
Yeah. I'm just scared because it's only 2 months. And I really, really, really want to see you get every single bet that you can get for every single one of your votes. Period.
Yeah, we definitely need, our votes are too precious. And like I said at the beginning of the program, there are too many people, Black and white, but many of our Black martyrs like Medgar Evers and others gave their lives so that we could have the right to vote. And I'm certain that they didn't want us to just give it away cheaply.
And I'm just totally agreeing. I just wish I knew better how to even advocate behind you or with you or beside you. That's all.
I appreciate
Because
you.
I'm scared that you're not going to get what you deserve, and that is what got Jones in Alabama, and that is the grassroots support, the groundwork, the driving them to the polls, everything that the black women and black men do to
And
get
see,
the
and
vote
see,
out.
and see, that's the thing is
Jones didn't deliver.
what people don't understand is, yes, there is a movement to get Trump out, and there are people who will go to the polls just for that reason. There are a number of other people that you have to enthuse in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't get enthusiasm through things that resonate with them, many of them will stay home. And I'm just trying to let Democrats know that yes, you are going to have a cadre of people who are like, I don't care what happens, I'm gonna vote blue no matter who. I got to get Trump out. That's a whole crowd, yes, but is that going to be enough? Are you reaching to the people who are saying, listen, if all it is about getting Trump out, I'll stay home if I can't get A, B, C, and D? Are we going to try to resonate with those people to get them to the polls as well?
Do you think you can get Joe to say, I'm pushing these 5 planks onto the platform specifically for my black voters?
I'm hoping
voters.
that is the hope, that we can get him to say stuff like that instead of saying dumb stuff like, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
I know. But see, I'm saying you got to have a specific call to action. And that's the way I work, is that you got to have a call to action, which is, we're going to have a call and we want these 5 things on planks in the platform. We want them in writing when you go to convention. That's how you get our votes. Right. That's how you get us to the polls.
And we're working to try to get some specific commitments.
I love it. I love it. And that's what I want to hear.
All right. I appreciate your call.
You take care. Be
you
good.
413-337-1867. Y'all been all up in the comments and stuff, and I have not been paying attention. I got 6 more minutes left in the program for those who want to call in and get in on the last part of this. I'll take your calls until show close. But shout out to every single one of y'all who've been on here. There we go. Someone said we need a Tavis Smiley style round table to spread the word to the grassroots. We need to have all kinds of town halls and events and utilize all kinds of platforms to try to get the word out or try to make the demand. You're right. Biden has not been officially nominated, Cousin Lisa. Although I don't think there's going to be a problem with that at the convention because the reality is Bernie dropped out and is now supporting him. Everybody else is now supporting him. So I don't think it's going to be a problem with him becoming the nominee. When black folks come together in big numbers, we get heard. Then we need to do that. We need to do that. Absolutely. Got another call coming in. It might be the last call of the day. Good morning, caller. You might be the last caller of the day.
Hey, brother. How are you, Bishop?
I'm good. How you feeling?
I'm doing all right. I'm on the I'm watching you on what's the name of this thing? YouTube.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a delay.
All right.
But what I wanted to say is there's a process to these things, and a lot of the young voters are not educated enough on the process.
Okay.
We're making demands on Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't even won the primaries yet.
Right.
It's okay to make our demands, but make them in a like when we show up for DNC, when we show up at the DNC, we have to have a delegate count. We have to know where our numbers are. We have to know what our power is.
Mm-hmm.
So when we go and sit at that table, because we always got to sit at the table at the Democratic Party, whether we use that or not, we always got to sit at the table. So when we come at that, we got to come strong. You know, let him know what we want. He definitely knows what we want. The minute Kamala Harris got out of the race, we knew what he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, my moniker is Burgundy and Gold. But what I would like to do is educate our young people. Our young people do not know, Bishop. They don't know the process.
Gotcha.
Can you, at 55 years old, you can't look at a person that's that age and say, you're the part of the establishment.
Right.
Because people like us we were walking the lines before you. We were walking the lines at 8 years old.
Yeah, well, we kind of came up. We came up in a different era, a different level of engagement.
So what I would try to what my biggest pet peeve is with like the young is they think that because we are at a position where we don't engage like we should.
Mm-hmm.
The census, we don't do it.
Right.
But they don't understand. Like this vote this year, it's not just about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is, to me, is like the garbage can on every Monday when it comes. We know it's there. That's that. Fine.
Right.
But my biggest thing is what happens now. We know redistricting is on the line. We know that we got the 10-year redistricting,
happening,
and then we can get our
2020.
representation.
Yes, sir. Happening this year.
So with that in mind, we can't keep saying over and over again, we're just not going to show up. We're just not going to show up. We're going to say, oh, we're going to show up. We're going to show up. See, that's how it's always been in our history. You go, damn, they're going to show up.
Right.
Now it's Trump voters showing up. We don't have a choice in this not to show up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Joe will get elected if we keep our focus. Our focus is to get Orange Goat out. Once Orange Goat is out, we can live a little bit in the terms of, okay, and that happens in November.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? That happens in November.
Right.
Orange Goat is out. But from November to January, oh no. That's our demanding period. Do you get what I mean?
But I think we need to be also demanding now through the convention and up to November, and we continue to negotiate after that. But you know, during the transition period, in terms of but see, the thing is, transition is a formality.
Correct.
People shouldn't be so naive to think that all of his cabinet picks and all that kind of stuff are happening between November and January. Trust me, he's made promises to people. Whoever becomes president has made those kind of commitments and promises before they get to November, between November and January. And so those negotiations need to be happening on an ongoing basis.
Oh, what I mean is that's when we're more public with it.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Right now.
But the announcements that are coming out between November and January are a result of the negotiations that went on before November.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And what I'm saying is that how are we allowing our young folks to stay in their shell of their cycle of, well, if he doesn't get our vote unless we get something back. It's not a matter of that right now. It's not a matter of that. He hasn't even won the primary, so it's not a matter of that right now.
Well, see, my
No, listen. What we need to be doing is coming together and saying, like Joe Biden's over here and he's running, okay, but here's what we want, and we talk that amongst ourselves. But he hears it. Everything that you do, Bishop, he hears. You know it. Every time you post, he hears it. There are people that are monitoring you, me, and others that are doing this type of stuff. He knows it.
Oh yeah. I think the our push to the younger crowd is you've got to be sitting in proximity of what's happening to be heard. You can't be off on the sideline somewhere. You've got to be in the thick of things, in the middle of things, for your voice to be heard and to make things happen one way or another. I think some of them get that, but the other thing is some of them are less pragmatic and more emotional, and you've got to resonate with their convictions as well. And so I think that's where Biden's campaign and anyone else who's running has to be multifaceted so that they can reach out and resonate with multi-generational groups. You can't just resonate with people that are 55 and over.
Correct. I think that's where we're losing it.
Yeah, and that was part of the reason why Bernie really cornered the market on the young vote. I mean, the way it worked out is there's a higher number of older people who do vote, which is what catapulted Biden's campaign. But if you can take those older voters who voted for Biden and some kind of way reach back and resonate with those younger voters who were voting for Bernie, then you would have a real movement. But if those young folks just stay home because Democrats aren't resonating with them, we may get another 4 years of Trump by default.
Exactly. And that's the problem. That to me is the problem. See, us older folks, we don't look at that. We don't look at that. We don't go, we're gonna either get a candidate in a Democratic side that's worth a damn, or I'm not voting. That's not our options.
Right.
It's never been our options.
Well, like I said, we grew up in a different era. We grew up in an era where when I turned 18, my mother told me, you better go out and vote because people died, so you would have a right. And she was a little more colorful in her language when she said it to me than that. And so I voted in every single election since I was eligible to vote. They didn't have that. And see, she came from that civil rights generation. Who instilled that in us. And somewhere along the line, although I've instilled that in my children, but many in my generation failed to instill that in the current generation of millennials. And so they don't have that fire that, I got to vote no matter what. It's like, no, I'm going to sit this one out, and they don't have a problem with it.
And I'm saying that has to be more of a message, too.
Yeah.
Because when we vote like that, it shows our force. That's why Jesse ran, and you understand that in far as history. Jesse kept running because it kept showing our force. Mm-hmm. And he went to that DNC and said, this is how it's going to go down, because he showed our force. When Bernie went to run, if Bernie wins in South Carolina, I guarantee it's a different race all the way through. I don't even think Sanders wins. I mean, if Sanders wins, I don't even think Biden is our nominee if he wins in South Carolina.
Yeah. If that had turned out differently, then I think the campaign would have turned out differently. Absolutely.
But in South Carolina, it said what? We are going to vote no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely.
It showed our force, the older generation's force. We're voting.
Mm-hmm.
We are voting, period. This is our force. And the young people backed up. We can't have that in our fight. Mm-hmm. They got to get the stomach of the fight. It took us 50 years just to get Martin Luther King's birthday. We got to get in the stomach of the fight. Yeah. This is a long-term thing. we already know by 2050, we already know that minorities are going to have the majority. We already know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They know too.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't be pushing us so hard not to vote. And now we're doing it to ourselves. That tells me a lot right there. We're doing it to ourselves, Bishop.
Yeah.
We got to not do it to ourselves.
Absolutely.
We got to say, look, out of these young people, we got a bunch of young people coming up that are incredible, both Democratic and Republican, that are going to be incredible legislators.
Yeah.
We got to find them. We got to support them. And then we got to push our agenda. But we always got to vote. We always got to take place in the census. We have a system that's rigged against us.
Yeah.
So you're not even going to participate in the little leverage that they give us?
And that's the thing we need to do, is take that leverage and use it.
Absolutely.
We got to do that.
But when the young people talk, because they don't vote in the numbers that they need to make change, when the young people talk, no one's listening because they're not bringing the numbers. Bring the numbers.
Absolutely. Appreciate your call. Good talking to you, man.
Hi, Bishop. My name is Walter, and it's been a pleasure and an honor to talk to you. Nothing but support, my brother.
All
Nothing
right.
but support.
Appreciate you.
Love
man.
you, Bishop.
All right.
God
Love
bless
back.
you. And, hey, let's get it done, buddy.
All
let's
right.
get it done.
Take care.
You too.
All right, people. 8 minutes past the hour of 11 o'clock. So listen, my virtual Bible study is on Wednesday at 7 p.m. And make sure you tune in on Thursday evening. My late night show is Thursday at 10 p.m. We come at you with Bishop Swan live. And so definitely put that on your calendar. And then on Sunday, our live stream from the Spring of Hope Church happens at 11 o'clock a.m. As always, it's been my pleasure being with you all this morning. Hey, listen, y'all stay safe. For those of you who are going to be out there trying to grill and do all that stuff, listen, don't do what I've seen some of our brothers and sisters out there doing. There's a reason why we wear these. Okay? Protect yourself. Protect others. There's still a pandemic out here. Just because Trump and others are talking about reopening the country doesn't mean coronavirus has disappeared. 100,000 people have died when they were predicting down to 65,000. We've long surpassed that. I had said we'd get past 65,000 by Mother's Day. We wound up getting to it before Mother's Day. And here we are still in May, and we're at 100,000. And people are out at beaches and all kinds of stuff, not wearing protection and all of that. So I need you to tune in Thursday. I'm going to talk about this irresponsible reopening of the country and the craziness that we're seeing happening. So listen, people up in the club, Floyd Mayweather and others up in crowded clubs and stuff. The white folks are out on the beach, black folk up in the club. Y'all need to stop, man. Anyway, I'll get going all over again, and I got to get off. I got some other things I got to do. But listen, until the next time I talk to you and you talk to me, always remember, God loves you, and so do I. Peace and blessings.
Brady Gray, say his name. Brady Gray, say his name. Brady Gray, say his name. Brady Gray, won't you say his name? Ayanna Jones, say her name. Ayanna Jones, say her name. Ayanna Jones, say her name. Ayanna Jones, Say a name. Say a name. Won't you say a name?
All right, caller.
Oh, this is Sophie. I just wanted to remind you to send out notice of tomorrow's meeting.
Gotcha.
Okay, all right.
All right.
John Crawford, say his name.
Yep.
John Crawford, say his name. John Crawford, say his name. John Crawford, won't you say his name? Michael Brown, say his name. Michael Brown, say his name. Michael Brown, say his name. Michael Brown, won't you say his name? Say his name. 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 Won't you say his name? Miriam Carey, say her name. 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 Sharonda Singleton, say her name. Sharonda Singleton, say her name. Sharonda Singleton, say her name. Say her name. Say her name. Emmett Till, say his name. Emmett Till, say his name. Emmett Till, say his name. Emmett Till, want to say his name. 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 What's your say his name? Tommy Yancey, say his name. 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 Jordan Baker, say his name. Jordan Baker, say his name. Jordan Baker, say his name. Say his name, won't you say his name? I'ma Diallo, say his name. I'ma do Diallo, say his name. I'ma do Diallo, say his name. I'ma do Diallo, say his name. 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 Say his name.